First matter of business, we have a presentation from Pro Champs. I think you guys have somebody online there to talk.
We have Tim Cox online. Tim, can you hear us?
Hey, how's everyone doing tonight?
Great, good.
Can you hear everybody, Tim?
Yes, I can.
All right.
You're on.
You're on.
Okay, great. Well, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak about the product. When I had talked to Kurt to put this together, I invited Drew Honesy, who is our National Mid-Market Manager. My name is Tim Cox. I'm the Indiana Mid-Market Manager, and you'll hear from Drew here in a moment. But Kurt had asked me to provide you all with a quick couple-minute overview of the program and then open it up to questions. Is that still the way you'd like me to proceed?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, I don't want to waste your time. So with Pro Champs, what we do is we partner with communities throughout the country to help fight neighborhood blight, and we really give your staff another tool that they can use in that fight. So we'll talk about the program, but really the high-level overview, the things that you need to know is the program starts with the ordinance that you all will be passing, and within that ordinance, that's going to define what is a vacant and foreclosed property, and that's going to require those responsible parties to register with the city. From there, we have a team that we dedicate to your community that is actually responsible for using the data that we have to identify those responsible parties, to get them to register, and then collect any fees that are due. We also offer a web-based software that your staff will have access to log into at any time. There's no limit on licenses or how many users you can have in. And they'll be able to see at any point in time in the community the number of vacant and foreclosed properties. They'll also have all the responsible parties' contact information that our team has uploaded at their fingertips. So if they have an issue where, let's say, there's a broken window or debris in the front yard or a gutter hanging down the front of a house, they'll have that responsible party's contact information, and they won't have to waste time trying to find the right person to reach out to. They'll have that right there while they're out in the field so that they can connect with that individual and then move on to their route. So if you look at the screen that we have up now, you'll notice that our program is built on 4 pillars. It's identification, regulate, enforce, and monitor. And these 4 pillars, this isn't just a one and done from us. This is something that we're updating constantly. So your team will always have the most up-to-date information for those properties because we do update it all the time. That identification section, this is where our data is actually going to identify those properties that are vacant and foreclosed, so your team will know where they're at. As far as regulate is concerned, this is when our team is actually going to send out those notifications. So as new properties become vacant or foreclosed, we'll send those letters out, we'll make the contacts as needed. When we get to enforcement here, this is where we will actually enforce the items in the ordinance that you pass. So if there's any type of a fee or items that trigger action from the enforcement or from the ordinance, that's where our enforce section comes in. And then as far as monitoring, your team will be able to see the trends, the information, the data, all that responsible parties' information in a view from anywhere, anytime they log into the program. So I know that's a lot to cover. I'll pause there and feel free to ask any questions. Drew and I will handle those for you.
How do we identify it? Is it foreclosures at the bank or lending institutions or what? Did you hear that, Tim?
Could you repeat that just one more time?
How do you identify these properties?
Yeah, and Drew, I'll let you jump in there if you want to tackle the nuts and bolts of that one. Drew, if you're talking, you're on mute. Otherwise, I can take the question. All right, I think his mic's down. The way that we identify those properties is we actually buy data from a number of different resources. We get information from credit bureaus. We have information that we're getting from court records, from the Department of Motor Vehicles. We get lots of information that flows into our portal. And I can jump into, I've got a slide prepared. This is a good look at, for example, those foreclosure filings. So if you're not familiar with the foreclosure processes, two of the more valuable pieces of information that we have access to, these LPs, this is lis pendens. That's Latin for suit pending. And what that means is if there's any suit pending on that property, we're going to find it through the court records, and that's a normal path for a foreclosure. And then NODs, that's a notice of default. So think if you're 90 days delinquent on your payment, we're going to see those notices of defaults come through, and we'll actually be able to collect data off that, as well as the deeds, judgments, dismissals. There's quite a bit of paperwork that we're able to get through the courts that help us identify those foreclosed homes.
Is there a fee charge?
I guess, yeah, my question is, what's the fee? Where do you make your...
We set the fee according to our ordinance.
What fee are they charging? Where are they making their money? I guess I'll be just blunt about it.
The fee that we charge, what's your typical fee, Tim? I know in our ordinance, you know, we'll set the fee amount. What is ProChamp's take on that fee?
So we take a flat rate of $100 on vacant and foreclosed properties, and the only time we take that fee on our end is if we successfully collect. So this is one of the few programs that are out there where we don't make money unless we have been successful as a company. So if for some reason there's a property that we're not able to successfully collect on, you don't owe us anything. From that perspective, we call this really a no-risk program, because if we can't identify or get that property registered or collect the responsible party's fee, you won't earn out anything.
So basically, they have to pay whatever the fee is that we come up in our ordinance. They have to pay that fee every 6 months. So if we set the fee at $200 every 6 months, ProChamps gets $100 of that $200 fee.
So if somebody has a rental property and it sits vacant for how long before they get put on this list?
What's the length of time a building can sit vacant before it has to be put on the list, before it has to be registered?
Yep, that's however your ordinance defines that situation. Ultimately, we can only enforce what the ordinance gives us the ability to. In that situation, it would be however you're defining the length of time for that property sitting.
So if we were to say in our ordinance 30 days, or 45 days, or 60 days, once that time period is up, then they would have to register.
Okay, so if they register and they pay, say we pick 3 months and it gets, what happens if they rent it? Then are they done paying while it's being rented, or are they still paying that fee?
If I'm not mistaken, Tim, if a building gets rented after they've paid that fee, then they don't have to register that again at the end of that 6 months. Is that correct?
That's right. If the property, let's say it's vacant and then somebody moves in our process, we call that deregistering the property. So we will remove it from the list if it were on there to begin with, and then that property is treated just like a normal one in the community. If it sits vacant again and it crosses that threshold in the ordinance that triggers us to step back in, we would re-register the property, and the process just begins again. So you'll see that sometimes with like foreclosures. Somebody might step in and buy that foreclosure, we deregister it, and then something happens, that person winds up having to walk away from the house, or it's more work than they anticipated, and it goes back to the bank. We just re-register the house, get it put back in the platform. Your team will be able to see the history on that particular property, and we just continue forward.
How do they handle properties in an estate? You know, somebody dies, that property may sit vacant for 3 or 4 months until it gets sold.
How do you handle properties that are in an estate? Say someone passes away and that property goes into an estate and it sits vacant for 3, 4, 5 months. In some cases, that could be up to a year.
It depends on the will, it depends on the family relationships.
How is that handled, Tim?
Yeah, Drew, do you have a good example of one of those estate issues?
Yeah, it would be handled in almost the same way as any other vacant property. We would just get in contact with the estate or a probate attorney to get them to register that property. It's nearly the same process as any other vacant property.
What if I buy a property and I'm going to remodel it? Is it the same scenario?
Yes, it would be the same scenario. If there is no, even if you're remodeling it, if there's no tenant in it, you would still have to register it.
Correct, and that would depend on the ordinance. So if there was language in the ordinance that said if it's under an active remodel or construction program, it did not need to be registered, then that would be fine. It's all dependent on what's in the ordinance. But I believe your sample ordinance that is up for tonight is just about the vacancy piece, and I don't think there are any exclusions for that.
We would have to take that ordinance and mold it
Right.
to fit us.
So for example, if I would buy a property and I would rehab it for 2 years, and then after my 2 years is up, I refurbish this property, and then now for the next 2 years, it's just empty because I have this that I've built how I want it, but I don't want anybody in it. I have to go in and pay a fee to have my property.
Correct.
Well, and I think I would just add to that part of the benefit of the program is that it encourages people to get that property back into good use as quickly as possible.
Or moving along within a state.
Yeah.
So under this program, let's say my parents die and me and my brother want to keep their house, and we pay for the water and all the utilities. It has a new roof, siding, windows, nobody lives there. I still have to pay a fee to own a property.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, if it's not in a blighted state, that may not be the case. Am I correct there, Tim?
But they're vacant.
I don't think it matters.
I didn't quite catch all that question. Drew, did you hear it?
If let's say somebody's parents die and the siblings inherit the house, and the house is in good shape, and they pay to keep all the utilities on. It's not blighted. Do they still have to register the house?
Well, and then, again, that depends on what's included in the ordinance. I believe that the sample ordinance you have specifically states that if there's vacancy includes a property that doesn't have utility service on it, whether that's water or electric or gas. So, again, that just depends on what's in the ordinance. So if in that particular situation, if somebody inherited a property and they kept all the utilities on and maintained that property, then that property may not be determined to be vacant under the ordinance.
So now I guess I'm confused. because it's either vacant with utilities or not vacant with utilities. It's either one or the other. It can't be both, right?
Well,
Or are
if
we gonna
you-
write it 100
most of the
specific?
time, the vacant buildings or vacant houses don't have the utilities. They don't have the electric, or they don't have the water shut off.
I wouldn't consider it vacant. If you own it, you're maintaining
You're
it.
maintaining
You've
it.
got all your utilities. You can go in there anytime you want and stay overnight.
I was just saying that because in here it says it's occupied. Well, that wouldn't be occupied. I just want to make sure because those are two specific situations that are in my neighborhood with the people that I'm representing.
I would be fine
We have
not
to figure out a way to not make people pay for things that just because they have things. So-
If we write the ordinance that way, we can set the
Yeah,
ordinance out
right.
that way. Like I said in the last meeting, a building is a living, breathing thing. Without HVAC, without water, without electric, that building's it's gonna go downhill really quick. And usually without tenants in it, people walking around, it's gonna go downhill. But if you keep up the maintenance on it and you keep the utilities on it, and we write it that way in the ordinance, then no, you wouldn't have to register.
Right. I wouldn't define that as not being occupied.
So even if, to answer Tim's question, if a house did go into an estate, as long as the family kept the utilities on and kept the maintenance, kept the yard mowed, kept the weeds down, no, they wouldn't have to register it.
Once they fault,
But once they
doing that.
default, and we
That's
have
what
to
we're looking
start
to clean
sending
up.
abatement orders to clean up the yard and mow the yard, then it may come to the fact that we may...
and that might move that family along to say, well, this isn't going to be a 5-year process. We'd like to do something so we're not paying to keep this house around.
So basically, we can tailor,
We can tailor
The
the
ordinance.
Yes.
Does ProChamp have any restrictions on what we put in the ordinance?
Tim, do you have any restrictions on what we put in the ordinance?
Well, and this is Andrew again, and I would just say, we try to keep it as close to the best practice ordinance that we have, because we've been doing this for 12 years or so, and we've done it with hundreds of communities, so we've seen what works and what doesn't work. There are some, obviously you can tailor the ordinance to some extent, but sometimes you run into issues when you start trying to tailor an ordinance to the extent of it has to be vacant for 120 days and it can't have, utility services, the vacant piece isn't meant necessarily to penalize anyone, so much as it is to give you all the data to know where your vacant properties are. So yes, you can tailor the ordinance to some extent, but any changes that are made to the best practice ordinance, we just ask that you get back to us so that we can review that to make sure it's something that is manageable for us to manage.
Well, can you ask him then what their opinion is on what we've just said about a property?
Okay, what would be your opinion on a case where, say, a house went back to an estate and we knew it was going to be vacant, but it was going to be kept, the maintenance would be kept up on it, the utilities would be on, or versus someone buying a home and renovating it and basically fixing it up? What would be your opinion on that as far as being put in an ordinance?
Well, and I think those are pretty standard exemptions for needing to register a property. So, for example, if the utilities are on and the property is being maintained, that can be exempted from being needed to be registered. If a property is actively undergoing some type of rehab, that can be exempted from needing to be registered. Those are pretty standard.
yeah.
But if you have an apartment owner who has a vacancy, at what point do they register? I mean, does the ordinance say if it remains vacant for 30 days, then they have to register it?
That is a good question. Say I have an apartment building that has 8 units, and one of those units is vacant for a period of time. Does that homeowner have to register that whole building, or does he have to register just that one unit?
Well, that's a very good question, because a lot of cities, what they'll do is say, as long, like for your example, if it's an 8-unit apartment building and only 1 unit is vacant, probably doesn't need to be registered. What can be included in the ordinance is if the building is more than 75% vacant, then it needs to be registered. That's the type of language that can be included in an ordinance, so that you're not forcing other, 1 unit of a 8-unit building being vacant does not qualify it to be a vacant building.
I think for the most part, if you've got 8 units, 10 units, whatever, and 1 vacant or even 2 vacant, the landlord's not going to let the whole building dilapidate. But we could put that verbiage in.
I mean, right now, the market is pretty, very much in favor of landlords. Their apartments are being rented out quickly, but that could change.
Right.
So if you have, let's say, because there's a lot of people in town that have a home that they rent out. So if they don't get it rented out within 30 or 60 days, if they're still maintaining it and they have utilities on, then that wouldn't be something that they have to register.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct. Correct. What this whole program focuses on is the buildings that aren't being maintained.
We have a few that are deteriorating every day.
Yes.
Right now.
And this would also, this registration would also help light a fire under somebody who does have a vacant building to possibly get somebody living in it, because they're not going to want to keep the upkeep on it as it starts to deteriorate. Obviously, you get somebody in there, then it's going to help prevent that, or slow it down, I should say.
I like the concept. I just think we need a little more tweaking on our end to get what we need.
And that's why I sent everybody those emails with those sample ordinances. I've already went through and marked up some of mine. So what we need to do is get together and get everybody's comments on one and get it written that way. Tim, will you guys take what we give you and write that ordinance? Or do we need to write this ordinance and submit it to you?
But this is Andrew again. I would just say if you make comments on the ordinance and send that back to us, we can write another ordinance for you and get that back to you.
Okay.
And the other thing I just want to comment on is I think that the examples of, a property that goes into probate or, an estate, I think those are going to be the exception to the rule. Typically what we see in most communities is that the vacant properties are those that are truly abandoned and no one's doing anything with them. And I don't know if that's your experience, but that's been certainly the experience that we've seen.
I think most of the decisions are on our end. We just have to mold that. I understand what Kurt's trying to do is just get them on a list so it's all easier for him. Is there a standard fee that most communities charge?
What's the average fee that you see most communities charge?
That ranges anywhere from $200 to $500 per property, but usually the lowest is $200.
It's on a 6 months period.
every 6 months.
Correct.
Kevin, Jim?
Would Kurt have the ability to, if they contacted somebody and said he needs to register, but Kurt is able to just drive by and see that it's in good shape, is he able to take that off the list, or is it, once they say you register, you pay the fee? Just curious.
Just, another question here. How will you know whether a vacant building will need to be registered or not? Will one of your team members come down here and actually look at the property? How will you know whether or not it's being kept up by the owner and the utilities are on?
But Tim just went to a slide that shows you the evidence of vacancy that we look at. We look at USPS data, whatever utility data we can get, whether it's trash or water or electric, and then also any data that we can collect from all of you, so that if you've been to a property and you know that it's vacant, that's information that we can use. And then I thought that I heard, how do we get a property unregistered if it becomes occupied again? I thought I heard that,
Yes.
but I don't know.
Yes, you did.
Okay. And that, again, comes back to this utility data and the USPS data, and also the owners of the property or the responsible parties for the property have the opportunity to dispute that with us. So if they say, no, the property is not vacant any longer, they can dispute that with us, and that goes through a review process so that we can, remove any fees that have been assessed or anything like that.
If there are fees connected to a foreclosed house, who pays the fees?
The mortgage holder. Whoever, if the house is foreclosed on and it goes back to the financial institution, now the financial institution is responsible party.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. In fact, I used to work for a very large financial institution and was responsible for registering these properties. So, throughout the foreclosure process, once the property goes into foreclosure, the bank or the mortgage servicer would be responsible to register that property. Likewise, if they obtain the property, the title to the property through a foreclosure action, and the property is vacant, then that financial institution is liable to register the property. And in a lot of cases, that's what you're going to see a lot of, is that it's the banks that own or are responsible for a lot of these vacant properties.
I'll give you guys an example. Right now, we're dealing with two houses in town, 1046 Vine Street and 1043 Central. So far, 1043 Central has done what we have asked them to do. Both houses have went back to the bank. We're starting the fence with 1046 now with their management teams and their financial institution and their lawyers. It's been a year now, and so far all they have done to the property is clean up the outside. The inside of the house is not habitable. So you've seen that email from last week. So this is actually going to help with situations like that, because they're going to step in on future houses like this and tell us, you got to register this, and you got to pay these fees every 6 months until you get somebody back in there. It's also going to force them to fix the houses up.
How do you collect that from that property owner?
And I would just add to that as well that
How?
I
They go
think
after attorneys. How do you collect if somebody doesn't want to register or pay their fee? How do you handle that?
Well, again, that can be addressed in the ordinance, because you can have late fees in the ordinance for failing to register. And all of these, especially the financial institutions and their property management companies, they fully understand that they are required to follow local codes. So as long as the ordinance is passed and it's part of local code, they understand they have the obligation to register those properties.
And if they register those properties, who goes after them? Will it be Pro Champs or will it be the local community?
It will be Pro Champs. We actually have a team that proactively goes after the responsible parties to make sure that they're registering the properties. Because as Tim explained before, because of our revenue sharing model, the only way our company is successful is if we're successful in obtaining those registrations we have.
How do these fees, how does this work if there's a sale of a property or a transfer of property from one person to another? Does the new party,
The new owner has to register. So if I own a house today that's vacant and I have to register, 2 months from now I sell the house to you, then according to our ordinance, you'll have 30, 45, 60 days to get somebody in there or to sell the house, or you have to register.
Has Pro Champ had problems with title insurance companies on this?
Have you had any problems with title insurance companies on this?
Not to my knowledge, no. But the scenario that you just laid out before, that's basically correct. But again, I would just caution that it's not so much about the private owners. It's about necessarily the financial institutions or the banks owning property and then selling the mortgage servicing rights or that property to another financial institution that is then just going to sit on it as a vacant property. That's what we see in most areas.
If you guys get further questions after tonight, I can get in direct contact with Tim.
His email's in that email you sent.
Yeah, his emails, the email that I sent all of you also, or the email that I sent you has his email address as well. But I'd be more than happy to field any questions. If there's anything you ask, I'm going to need to know anyway.
Do they go back and look for vacant homes, or is it going forward?
They'll go through the entire city. So if we were to, next month, everything goes good, ordinance is signed, it's passed, then boom, they start from that point on and they look at every address, every property. They'll do the actual legwork. Now if me or Tony happen to run out and we see a house that we know is not registered and it's getting blighted, then I can send pictures to Pro Champs and say, hey, we've got this address that just hit our radar. Then they can start doing their due diligence on that property and then find out who owns it and then force registration on it.
So what if they're up on their utilities, up on their bills, but it's just in very bad
It's considered
shape?
blighted, yeah.
If the bill do blighted, it doesn't have to be
But it's not
vacant.
vacant or it's not foreclosed on. That's what we're dealing with here.
Oh, if it's not vacant and it's not foreclosed on, then that falls in my lap to get after them to hang the gutters or fix the windows or
Pick up
get a
the
new
junk.
roof on it. That
Okay.
comes from our office. That'll be no different than
Currently.
Phyllis's house got weeds 3 foot tall and needs to mow her yard. Then I'm going to send her a letter. Well, actually, I'll walk up to her office and tell her. But anybody else, I will send a letter. So,
It's just another tool to help continue this cleanup.
It's another tool,
I think it's a great tool.
Yeah.
and it's free.
Shouldn't this help with condemnation then?
Huh?
Condemnation, shouldn't it help with that?
It
You're not
should help
doing
with
that?
condemnation. unless you can park a Buick in the roof, then that's demolition, so.
I don't think I got any more questions for them, do you guys?
It's a matter of getting the ordinance the way we want it.
So I guess what I'm looking from council is approval to either move forward or not.
I'll make a motion to move forward, but I'd like to see a marked up copy of the ordinance from you, Kurt, of what you think needs to be in it first, and then go from there. I think I'd rather see it crafted for our community, and as far as the fees go, we want to decide that later, but I don't think they have to be outrageously high. It's basically a registration system for Kurt to know what's vacant and foreclosed on.
Right.
It's not going to be a money maker, but it just allows us to see.
No, but a fee
But
to get their
also the-
attention saying, we don't want this long term.
And the fee would be every 6 months, so, you know, if it's set at 200, but I'll second your motion.
So a motion is second to move forward, but that's after seeing a marked up ordinance from Kurt and the way he wants it.
Well, I'd like to see some of your marked up ordinances
Yeah,
as well.
but
because
getting an ordinance that we all agree on.
Okay, so the motion is to move forward, changing an ordinance to the way we want it to be, and... Okay, motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, guys, we appreciate it. I'll be in touch.
You bet. If there's any questions, just let us know.
All right. Bye. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Did we just lose the alphabet?
Yeah,
That's why they were here. was
They wanted to hear this.
they probably want to see it.
Actually, we're being watched by the rest of the county, just so you know. Because the county
Are they interested in it
is
too?
interested in this, Mark Wynn is interested in this.
Yeah.
A couple of the commissioners are interested in this, and they just want to see how we're doing.
Good
Okay.
deal.
Good.
I think it's a good program. I just want to make sure that people who don't deserve to be fined aren't fined.
Right, and I
My
agree.
biggest concern is like the house on the corner of 2nd and Jackson Street. So that's a vacant home. That was the biggest blighted problem.
I mean, as a property owner, the only thing that scares me is if our economy tanks, and we got these downtown businesses that are struggling to survive with COVID right now, and these buildings become empty, you're going to penalize the guy trying to keep them still up, and, you know, if I got to pay another $200 a month because my storefront went empty, but, you know, just so we don't do that.
I think a key is
You
utilities.
lose the building because you got these
The key...
A key is if they're paying utilities and if they're mowing it.
Right, and I like that, but
Like,
keep it...
I have a neighbor that just moved to Woodcrest with his wife, and it may be permanent, it may not be permanent. So the family's gonna maintain their home until sometime this year. They may sell the house, they may not, but I would fully anticipate they're gonna care for the property. If it sits for 2 years, that's a different scenario.
Avoid like a couple of the houses around town, like on Shermeyer, and to the point where they're falling in.
Because this ordinance specifically says that vacant is not occupied. It doesn't say anything about utilities. That's why I brought that up.
We can modify this ordinance to
Is
add...
there any way to give your building department discretion on, I mean, that would be the simplest.
I think,
Or is that open?
yeah, I
too
think
much
that's
judgment?
probably what they're going to tell you they're not comfortable with.
I didn't hear what you said. Like, let him choose which one they register.
That would be,
That would be another job.
I'm not saying choose which one would be
Well,
registered, but if it's obviously not vacant
Well,
or
basically,
blighted.
like he said, if a property needs to be registered, the owner has the right to contest. Okay, and then based on that, we can look at that individual case on its own, take pictures, do a study on it, and decide, okay, yeah, all the windows are broke out. You need to get new windows in there. So, yeah, you need to register this. You're not keeping it up. Meanwhile, you own a rental property and it looks fine. The grass is mowed, the weeds are down, nothing wrong with it. You're not going to register.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Jeremy, we got a couple areas looking for parking signs or handicap signs.
Over the last several months, Lenny Corral and I have been contacted on a parking issue on West Monroe Street. There is a new resident living in that area that has probably a few too many cars to fit in their driveway. So there's been at least one time that one vehicle parked out in the road has caused an accident due to people coming from the west and looking into the sun and not seeing the vehicle sitting there. The street's really not wide enough to have parking on either side, and to still have free travel through there. At first, when the accident happened, it was, kind of, here or there. And then as we looked at it a little closer and just saw different near misses and just kind of studied it a little closer, Lenny and I are both in agreement that we need to make no parking on north and south side of West Monroe Street from West Lawn Drive to Industrial Park Road.
So it doesn't exist right now?
It does not exist. It would just need to be added to the ordinance.
If you're both in agreement, I'm in favor. I'd make the motion.
Yeah.
I'll second.
And then also at the same time, about the same time frame, I received a request from the VFW. It's probably been, several months back, questioning an additional handicap parking spot in front of the lodge. They're having...
How many do they have?
They only have one now, and they are...
You want an additional one?
Yes, and they're experiencing some older members, obviously. So...
Is there room for it?
What's that?
There's room for it in your
Yes,
opinion?
there is.
On 3rd Street?
On 3rd Street, right out front.
I'd make a motion to accept that request.
And I'll second that one.
So the motion or second for both requests?
Yeah,
We can't physically do that.
right. So the first one was Matt made a motion for
West Monroe.
approval of West Monroe, no parking on either side of the street. Wiley seconded.
Okay, I have a motion and second on West Monroe Street, no parking. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
Another one.
I think I have a motion from Matt on the second one also. This is a parking spot in front, or a handicap spot in front of VFW, and the second by Wiley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
So what will happen is, these will both come back to you in the form of an ordinance that amends the code. And, the handicap parking probably is something that, if you want, you could suspend the rules and do that in all 3 readings. The no parking on West Monroe, I'll leave that up to your discretion. You may want to table that for 3rd and final reading in a couple weeks to give people... Well, not public hearing, but just give people an opportunity to be heard if they have comments or complaints.
Do you have to put a sign up for the handy on front of the VFW if you just paint it?
No, you have to sign up and a pavement markings.
The pavement, it doesn't suffice, doesn't take care of it. You have to put a sign for each spot? For each stop?
If it snows, you can't see it.
Do you have to put a sign on each spot?
I'd have to go back and look. We can probably just move the sign to the middle on both of them.
That'd be perfect.
Oh, that'd be
As
great.
long as it's
Because
signed.
I hate the trashy look of the signs. If we could get away with paint on the road and put one in the
I'd
middle.
have to go back and look at the code. I have saw it that way where it's split in the middle.
Perfect. You could put arrows on the sign pointing to 2 spaces. Signs are tacky.
It's just,
You have not saw your email. The
I saw it,
surrender
I got it.
Yep.
So I'll get that, get the ordinances very...
Tacky.
I'm just saying.
We've got another way of saying it, but we won't do that.
Yeah. We're just going to try to keep it that way.
Okay. Kevin,
This junk thing.
got an ordinance on the sewer connection fees.
Just following up from last meeting, we talked about implementing a system development fee for wastewater. And Tim and Ann had an ordinance written up, and
So it's
laid out my
the,
proposal.
yeah, if you recall, it was a fee that would be established based upon the size of the water meter serving a property. And the mechanism of how this will go is this will be introduced for first and second reading, tabled for third and final reading, and you'll need to schedule a public hearing at your next meeting because it's a rate increase. And then after the public hearing, you can take action on third and final reading if you're so inclined. And then there is a waiting period for anybody that wants to challenge or remonstrate against it. And once you get beyond that, and you also have to publish notice of the ordinance, the entire ordinance. And then that starts a 30-day window running. And at the end of that period, then the ordinance will go into effect as of April 1st. So it's just the timing of what we're doing here.
I do have a question. This ordinance is just for city utilities. Is that correct? It does not impact what the county fees are doing?
No. Currently, we're already under contract with the county.
Correct. Right. Because we had that question from an individual after reading it in the newspaper, and that's what I told them, but actually both of us told them, but I wanted to make sure that I said the right thing.
It may be something to consider in a future contract.
Right, but that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah.
This is only for
moving forward.
And what is this, water taps or sewer taps, or both?
It's based off of their water meter size. That's just the easiest way to size it.
So the average guy at a residential will be a 3/4 inch?
Be $1,000, yeah.
Or up to 1 inch is $1,000?
Yeah.
And that's for what? Tapping water and sewer into the house?
There's a water tap fee already, which currently it's $750 for a residential. So this would be on top of that for the sewer.
This isn't water at all. This is
sewer. The current 250 isn't even laid out anywhere as far as
build up some money.
Yeah, so
For expansion.
this 1,000 is basically your sewer tap fee.
All right, so
But
let's
it's
say a
based off
guy
the water
built,
meter size.
let's say a person in the city limits builds a house, and, okay, now it's time to get water and sewer to their house. So now, basically, we're taking it $750 and $250, which would be $1,000 bucks.
Correct.
And we're moving the cost to them to get water and sewer tapped to their house by the city, right? To $1,750?
Correct.
Okay. What ordinance number will this be?
1.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to place ordinance 2021-1 on its first reading by short title only.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I'll make a motion,
Wait a minute.
whoops, I'm sorry.
Yeah, read it.
Ordinance 2021-1, short title, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Decatur which amends Chapter 54 of the Decatur Code of Ordinances of 2015 as supplemented for the purpose of establishing a system development fee to be collected from the owners of property before connection to the city sewage system or before increasing an owner's capacity.
It's hard to say those numbers.
That is.
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2021-1 on its first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call?
Craig Koshaw,
Yes.
Matt Dyer,
Yes.
Tyler Fulenkamp,
Yes.
Scott Murray,
Yes.
Wiley Sirk.
Yes. I'll make a motion to place ordinance 2021-1 on its second reading by short title only.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Ordinance 2021-1, short title, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Decatur which amends Chapter 54 of the Decatur Code of Ordinances of 2015 as supplemented for the purpose of establishing a system development fee to be collected from the owners of property before connection to the city sewage system or before increasing an owner's capacity.
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2021-1 on its second reading.
Second.
A motion and a second. Roll call?
Craig Koshaw,
Yes.
Matt Dyer,
Yes.
Tyler Fulenkamp,
Yes.
Scott Murray,
Yes.
Wiley Sirk.
Yes. I'll make a motion to table ordinance 2021-1 for its third reading on February
16th? Was it?
16th.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
Okay, and then, if you would, schedule a public hearing at that meeting, and that'll need to be advertised. And then at the end of that public hearing, then you can take action on this ordinance third and final reading.
Is that enough time for the advertisement between now and next meeting? Is this, what, 7 days or 10 days?
It has to be advertised at least 10 days in advance, so I don't know, Phyllis, is that...
Are you just wanting this ordinance to be,
Just
just a public,
just
what
a
all they
public
need?
hearing on the proposed ordinance.
Yeah, usually they can do it fairly quick.
After it's passed, then you have to publish this.
Then you, once
Then we
it's,
publish.
then you publish the entire ordinance.
Okay.
That starts the clock running, and that's why we show the effective date of the ordinance to be April 1st.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, we have a lease agreement with Decatur Force Volleyball.
Apparently this was not approved yet. But Board of Works had given approval for the mayor and I to sign. It has been signed, but it was not in the record, so council just needs to approve it also, and...
Make a matter of record.
Yeah, if we could, please.
You satisfied with it, Dan?
Yeah. Yep.
Make a motion to make it a matter of record.
Second.
Approve it and make it a matter of record.
Make a motion to approve and make it a matter of record.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Okay. All right. Next, we have a couple things with the Hive. Phyllis and I and Shelby met with paygov.us, which is who the utilities office uses for credit card payments. So we're asking for approval to use them as a payment option at the Hive.
Makes sense. I make a motion to approve it.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then, we need do we have the resolution for a cash change fund to be established for the public arts director at the Hive. So to get started off, we need to create a fund.
Yeah, we met with Shelby and Dan and I and talked about having some kind of change there for her when she sells art. So to start her out with $100, we thought would be good. And she will be the custodian of the money. So, there's your resolution. That'll be resolution number 1.
So, and this would be 1, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to introduce resolution 2021-1 by short title only.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Resolution number 2021-1, short title, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Decatur, Indiana, authorizing and establishing a cash change fund for the Hive Art Gallery.
Make a motion to pass resolution 2021-1.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Do we need to do anything else, or is this one time?
Nope, just one time.
Okay, we have a service agreement from Adams County Economic Development that I think we just need approval to sign. Nothing changed from last year, right? He kept the same percentage.
It's the same percentage. 13% of our seed distribution goes towards Adams County Economic Development. And we pay him twice a year. June and December. Do you have it?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I have it.
So we need a motion.
Yep.
For Dan to sign it.
So moved.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Who made the second?
Wiley,
What?
didn't you? Or am I hearing things?
Go ahead, Wiley, make the second.
I thought Matt made the motion, but I didn't hear the second.
Matt, okay, I'll second it.
Okay. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign? Okay. And... Les had asked me before he left to announce that they have the application process open for a new firefighter on the Decatur Fire Department. I think it's posted out there a few different places on our social media and the website, and so wanted to get that out there. Okay. Do you have anything else that's supposed to be on the agenda? Okay. Department heads. Lenny.
Nope.
Chairman?
Friday, we filed the next community crossings grant. That application consisted of 20 various streets within the city. Keep your fingers crossed in the next 30 to 45 days that we hear positive news on that. If not, the plan is just hit resend again in June when it comes back and just submit the same application one more time. The program's been very, very beneficial to the city. My assistant Matt and I were talking this afternoon, going back through our maps, going through our asset management plan, and it would be a huge boost to us to get this next round, and possibly look into one more smaller round, or just take a little break and finish up what we have to do on our own. So keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully, we win it. And if we do, the projects would go out for bid the last Tuesday in June. If not, it'd be a fall letting and then a 22 construction.
Jeremy, does the local match increase if the census figures show our population increased above 10,000?
Not yet.
It hasn't yet, but I mean, if it goes over that figure, does it then increase?
If it goes over that figure, our match will be 500,000 instead of 200,000.
Right. Okay.
So that's what we're going to have to look at after we make it through the next round. So if it's beneficial.
So all the more reason to get it now.
Or if we finish up the little smaller areas on our own. In this application, the 20 various streets have quite a bit of length and quite a bit of cost to those streets. So I'm trying to get the most bang for our buck when we're still in the 50-50 here. I feel pretty good about it, but we'll see. The last the January letting that they had was carryover from September. They awarded the most money that they ever awarded in January, which is just a little over $100 million. Every community that applied was full. So we're not real sure how much money is going to be available this round and how many set the last round out. So you just take your turn and make the best of it and kind of see where our cards fall. Other than that, other than a long weekend, moving snow and making some people happy and some unhappy, and everything's fairly quiet.
Kevin? Kurt?
Yeah, to the general public, if you own a commercial building in the city of Decatur and you want to remodel that building or make alterations to that building, you need to call my office and determine, one, do you need a permit? In some situations, you don't need a permit, depending on what you're doing. But two, you also need to decide whether or not it's going to require a state design release. Commercial buildings are a totally different monster than residential housing. With residential housing, I have final say so. With commercial, the state has final say so. I am just a quality control person at that point. So if you're going to make changes to a commercial building, you need to call my office. Also, as of the new ordinance passed last year, all contractors must register with the city of Decatur. That's it.
Donnie?
Still working on sewer stuff, pretty hot and heavy. Thanks for the new tool to keep going ahead with that. We'll be meeting with AECom next week, see how we're doing.
Okay, great. Carrie?
Nothing.
Ian, you have anything?
We're always impressed with how much gets accomplished and how much, like how hard everybody works. I'm proud that I get to be part of this and I want it. It's really exciting. So, thanks.
Yep, thank you, I agree. Help?
I'd just like to thank our city people and the work, especially this last weekend, but also just the ongoing staying on top and appreciate everyone's efforts. So thank you.
I'd like to say thanks once again for driving home. I was out of town this weekend and coming home, and I know the county roads were a bear because they were drifting, but I was pretty proud of the way that the city streets looked. Thank you guys for getting us to work and getting us home safely.
I agree. Obviously there were some phone calls, some complaints. The streets look really clear. None of us enjoy having our driveway plowed back shut, or our sidewalk that we just cleared, stuff thrown back on it. But the job of our city workers are to make sure that our streets are clean and they're safe. Some of the stuff that stays on the street, once they get salt on it, may get slushy and become ice again. And the idea is to come back and clean them again. So it does happen, and like I said, I shoveled out the end of my driveway a couple times, but I am very thankful that my streets were all clean. Those guys put in a lot of hours, and some of them had to leave there and go to a water leak, in the same weekend. So I do want to thank all of those men and women that were out there working this weekend and making sure our streets were clean and safe.
It is a process, it's not a one-time done and everything's good.
That's the most snow we've had in probably 5 years.
Yeah, it is.
I will take credit for the mayor's driveway. As he stood 6 feet from me and watched me do it.
And I will say, as I watched it pile up at the end of my driveway, the finger he pointed at me wasn't the number one finger. But I gladly moved it out. My son and I gladly moved it out of the driveway.
Do we have the event forms?
Oh.
Itch in my nose.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, I got some other things too.
Can I make a quick announcement? February 8th at noon, we're going to have the State of the City address. Due to the size of the room, we've filled it, and we'll have information on virtual. What we're going to do is we got a high school student going to come in and film it, and then we'll put it on our chamber website to be viewed at a later date. Just because of the capacity of the room, we're having a lunch, and we've met capacity on it for social distancing. So we'll have a virtual. It'll be on our chamber website, decaturchamber.org, and if possible, we'll have a virtual Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
If you want to register, you want them to email you, or what do you want to do? You just want to put it up on the website?
Yeah, let's put it on the website for now.
Okay, so that's what we'll do.
There's a few businesses that are asking about wanting to be teams, so I'm going to need their addresses, their email addresses, to be able to invite them to the Teams meeting. But there's only so many we can put on that, so.
Okay. So if you can't get on the Teams meeting with it, then we'll have it posted in a day or so. As soon as we can get it up in a format where we can get it on the chamber website, we'll.
Yeah, I would say contact the chamber if they're interested in watching how to watch it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, anybody else from council? Oh, you want to do this?
Madison Street Plaza rental for the Belmont High School 2021 prom. Les and Jeremy did sign off on this then, so they're okay with it. And she is requesting the street closure, so I don't know. Craig, did you want to check with her? She really wants that street closure.
Yeah, I'll touch base with Jenny on it. Do you have her telephone number?
Yes, I do.
The only reason I was going to ask, if they're going to have police protection, they probably don't even need to close First Street, because it sounded like that's what they wanted between First and Madison Street Plaza.
I think, is it Jennifer Brzezinski? Is that who is asking us? I think this is really, this is good. They're thinking outside the box with what's going on right now, having the prom outdoors. I hope the weather is good for them. That'd be really, really cool to see down on Madison Street.
Yep. So
Is there a motion? Approval?
Yeah, make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
Okay, and then I have, Craig gave me a bunch of events today. So,
I have to recuse myself, I would assume. What do you think, Tim?
For the summer concert series, June 3rd through August 26th on Thursday nights from 5 to 10, and closing 2nd Street, crossing along Madison Street. Do these all
5 to
separate?
10 includes setups and stuff like that, but most of the shows will be from 7 to 9, 9:30, something like that.
You want to do all in one motion, or?
We can just probably approve them all in one.
Okay. Decatur 2021, close off Madison Street, 1st to 3rd, 2nd Monroe to, I'm not sure what that word means. Oh, Court.
Yeah, Court Street.
Yeah. And that will be June 26th. But they want to set up on Friday from noon to 11. Oh, that's the event, noon to 11.
They'll probably want to set tents up the day before. Setup will be on the floor.
On Madison Street, right?
Right. And then the other one's Decatur German Fest 21, close off 2nd Street, crossing Madison. And this will be August, no date.
22nd.
Okay.
I'd like to set up the day before if possible,
Okay.
on the plaza.
Okay, from 5 to 11. And Adams County Highland Games, Riverside Field, Friday, October 1st, noon to 6:30.
That's for setups.
Oh, it's a start.
And it'll have to
Oh,
be
it's the
set.
event is October 2nd. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Street closing is Jackson Street Bridge to US 224. And then 4th of July celebration, Sunday, July 4th, event 5 to 11, and close off Jackson Street Bridge.
I'd make a motion to accept them.
Second.
Motion and a second, and hopefully we have all these this year. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I have to recuse myself on the things.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
For the concerts, we're going to put a power box on First Street and move all the food vendors back there? Or?
Talked about that. That power never got moved, did it yet? Okay.
You're waiting.
That's the goal, is to still do that.
And then one thing, to have a matter of record, the mayor appointed Shane Cobble to the BZA board for a 4-year term.
Good.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Okay.
That's it?
Did we already do Kevin McIntyre's?
Yes.
We did last one,
Yeah.
okay.
Anything else,
To
Dan?
pay the claim.
I'll second. While you say.
Got motion and a second to pay the claims, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Do we have anything from the public? Does anybody have anything? I don't think we have.
Yeah, I thought we'd talk a while.
I'll give you 5 minutes.
I'm gonna go watch IU.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.